Previously on the Leaky Bucket podcast.
It wasn't the life that I wanted. And I just, remember sitting at her funeral and thinking, her life had been taken away. And, that if I didn't make some changes, then, my life was pretty much going down the pan as well.
Hi there, and welcome to the Leaky Bucket podcast. I'm your host, Ian Morgan, and this is the financial performance podcast for entrepreneurs looking to get a better understanding of their numbers, to plug the leaks in their business, and to move from surviving to thriving. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Leaky Bucket podcast. Today we have with us Andrew Calderella. Andrew's originally from Detroit, and his story is certainly going to be one of interest. There's been many challenges, from Andrew being legally blind in one eye, having dyslexia, and some learning difficulties as well. Yet he has gone on to attain degrees, run multiple businesses, and write a best-selling book, along with much more as well. He's now a coach and trainer who helps athletes, entertainers, executives, and entrepreneurs become their best in all areas of life. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for joining us.
Brilliant. Andrew, kick us off and talk us about sort of early life then. Obviously, I mentioned there about, having dyslexia, some learning difficulties, legally blind in one eye. But how was that as a child and growing up?
Sure. Yeah, it was really tough. As you mentioned, I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1966. Parents fighting for the civil rights movement, dad working, more than full time just to keep us all alive. And here I come along with, great challenges in my life. Couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't do a lot of things in elementary school that a lot of other kids could do. And so, yeah, it was really challenging. You said I had a lazy eye. They put a patch over my good eye to make me look out of my bad eye to make it stronger. And I think you can imagine this kid walking around with dyslexia, other learning disabilities, patch over his eye, was bullied relentlessly. Teachers even mocked me. I had a teacher in fourth grade just telling me how stupid I was and I should just drop out of school and, in front of the whole class. So challenging, led me down negative thinking, depression, suicidal thinking, and took a lot to get out of that. Help from my mom and special teacher, and, really reaffirming that, inside of all of us, we're good people. What people think about us sometimes isn't right, and kind of led me down a path of trying to figure out how we can become the best people we can be, how we can fix the wrongness in the world. And, it doesn't really have to be like it is. So that's kind of where the book came out of. Like you mentioned, I had a lot of companies, graduated degrees from university, traveled overseas, did a lot of big things in my life, but it's always really been centered around and coming back to, how can we fix our world? How can we all become our best? And I did find some foundations and some solutions that I kept sharing with people. And they're like, you got to put this in a book. You got to share this with the world. So after 30 years, I finally am starting to do that. So that's why I'm here on your show.
Yeah. Andrew, do you think those sort of early challenges and teachers and that telling you that you can't do so much stuff led you to be relentless in trying to achieve so much?
Gosh, I go through this a lot with people. It's like sometimes people think that if you're bullied, it makes you stronger. Like they always point that out with me. And I guess I can see that to some degree. But honestly, if it wasn't for my mom in the background telling me that they were wrong and trying to build me up and, keep me going, I don't know that I would have made it. I think for every kid like me, there's hundreds, if not thousands and thousands that don't make it. So I would say, no, I think there's a better way to bring out excellence and toughness and, these core values that we all want to instill in our children than having them thrown in trash cans or almost drown and, spit on and all the rest of the stuff. This doesn't instill confidence or anything other than just rage and sadness and, all these other feelings that you don't know how to deal with as a kid. You don't have any idea why this is all happening to you. And I think one day I just woke up, I think it was probably after that teacher said that, after I realized I wake up and I'm happy and I want to go out, and then I realize what's going to happen and you don't want to wake up anymore. You know what I mean? You just don't want to be in this world anymore. And I had a great, like I said, a good family that helped me, and I'm really creative. Along with my learning disabilities, I also had some great gifts. They test me out as, a genius in abstract thinking and these other areas. But as a kid, those things don't show up. You know what I mean? You can't read, you can't write, you can't do math. It's like it's kind of crazy. So I hope that answers your question. I would say, in some respects, maybe a little bit, but if anything, it creates rage and negative thinking. And I think a lot of kids end up lashing out and dealing with these things in really negative ways, which I started to. I can't tell you how many fights I've been in. I mean, it's ridiculous. So anyway, I think that's a better way to handle these things than that.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was much more the love and care of your family, and in particular your mother, that built you to who you are today, as opposed to the wanting to prove those who said you couldn't do everything wrong.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And my dad worked all the time. He was a really good role model, strong guy. And my sister had a lot of challenges too. She had a lot of surgeries, almost died a lot of times in her life. And so, it was a challenging time. But I think that, as I say in the beginning of the book, sometimes you find the truths in the most hardest times. You really understand what love means when these things are happening to you. You know what I mean? And I think that that's true with a lot of us. We learn through hardship. I would say, like the human race, we need to be burned to learn, shaken to awaken sometimes. And these things happened to me when I was young, and I witnessed a lot of things that were pretty horrible. So I think it shook me and allowed me to wake up a little earlier and really realize what was important in life and where we all needed to go. I think what strikes me the most sometimes is when I talk to people, we all want the same things. You know what I mean? Nobody wants pollution and dysfunctional government and horrible businesses and all the rest of the inequities and horrors in the world. We all want to have great lives and, drink clean water and have great schools and all this great stuff. So what is the problem? It's 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, depending on how many years you want to say we've been around in civilization. Why is it that we're still fighting the same old battles and keep going around the same cycle of repeating the past and hatreds and war and all the inequities? And for me, it always boiled down to, after a lot of research, obviously, that we're not sharing kind of a common belief system, a kind of an understanding of why we're here, what we're meant to be doing, how do we become good people, what are the structures of society, how do we make those better, how are they supposed to work? We keep trying to build things up and rip them down and point the fingers and all these other things, and it's really diverting us from what we all want and what we really are supposed to be doing. So that's where the way comes in. And it's not my way. This is, like I would say, the human way for us to be our best and fix our world. So
Andrew, before we dive into the other areas, I just want to understand a little bit of maybe thinking in terms of you described yourself as, or other people have maybe described you as a genius in abstract thinking, yeah, and that, but the education system, or the traditional education system that we have, isn't designed in order to recognize your level of clever and your level of genius.
No, so that wasn't actually discovered until college. So,
okay. And my question was, like, yeah, how did that lead to you still wanting to go on and go and to study a degree? How come you didn't want to get out of the education system as such?
Again, it goes back to my parents, honestly. I remember there was a time I changed my major like 7 times. I struggled in college. When I had these learning disabilities and things, I kind of compensate them through, all through high school, but college level is much more difficult. And anyway, there's science classes versus, humanities classes, things like this. So it was a learning experience, and I ended up hurting myself at one point. I got hooked up with what they called the disabled students at that time, and they asked me these questions and realized I had all these things. So they gave me note takers in class. I know it sounds weird, but trying to write everything down that somebody's saying if you have dyslexia is really hard. And then going back and recording it and listening to it just made everything so much more too long for a student to handle. So once I got note takers and was able to listen to the books, I was kind of able to compensate. I think that our educational system, again, everybody talks about how it needs to be improved, and I think that's absolutely right. It was based in, slavery and serfdom. Sit down, shut up, don't move, for as long as possible, treating us like we're not even humans. And that system of work and education has persisted throughout the world pretty much, everywhere. And I think that that's not a human way to learn. I mean, we're naturally need to get up and move around and learn and think and do things and exercise to be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, capable and happy. So I believe our educational system, just like our whole world, is in this great flux right now. We're all trying to figure out, like, what is the next stage of humanity, and how do we take this next step from these legacy systems that are clearly flawed into a better system. And I always say, look, it's not about pointing fingers. Everything is flawed. Every human being on this planet has the potential to be corrupted or to actually become really successful as a human being. And the question is, like, how do we do that? So for me, it always comes down to this idea that it's like best practices. There are a set of best practices pretty much for everything, and we can continually to improve them. So if you as a human being know all the different foundations of, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, all the other parts of your body, financial, all the best practices and all these foundations are able to integrate them into your life, that'll help you become a better person. We all join together, and then we also understand the structures of our society, the different systems, how they're supposed to work. And again, there's best practices that we can figure out how to make them all work better. I don't care what it is, water systems, government systems, whatever it may be, and we share it with each other and we upgrade our systems. I think that with education, it's one of those things where, like any big monolithic thing, it's very hard to make it change, right? Because it's like it has almost a life of its own, and we just keep feeding the system with new people. So that's the best or the biggest challenge, is creating new educational systems or ways of doing things, testing them out, seeing what works for these kids and what works for these other children, and helping the teachers be able to implement it so all the kids get a better education. Hopefully that makes sense. To me, it's always about refining and improving and figuring out, like I said, the best practices on how to do things, instead of always pointing your fingers and saying things are wrong, ripping it out, starting over. I mean, it's like you're just going to create something similar and have the same issues that you're having now. So.
Yeah. Andrew, I'm thinking then that after getting your degree and sort of leaving college, where did life take you then?
I got a job in Japan right after college. It was a program between the U.S. government, and they call it internationalization representative, and it was part of the JET program in Japan. I taught some English, traveled around to all these different communities. Actually lived in a town that hadn't, seen a foreigner. Like a lot of people never seen an actual human that wasn't Japanese. And this was back in the early 90s when America and Japan were having some major issues. George Bush went over there. Actually, I think he passed out or threw up on the stage. He had all these major problems with Japan. And what struck me when I went there and I met these people, they're some of the nicest people I ever met. The heart of Japan is what they call the people live in the country. And that's where I lived, up in the mountains in this little town. And they were so unbelievably nice to me. And I even went into like these kids' rooms and I see American flags on the walls. You drive around the country and you see like James Dean, just endless American iconic, things everywhere. So one of the things that I just want to say this about Japan and this whole hatred thing in the world, Japan in World War II felt like they were the superior to the world. They were divine right to rule everybody. They treated us like dogs. They literally thought of us as animals. Okay, and I had this discussion with some really, really old people in Japan with my translator. And what this one woman said to me has stuck with me forever. She told me this whole thing like this. She's like, yeah, we hated you. We thought you were animals and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to enslave the world and do all this stuff. And you showed us. In the West, we call, turn the other cheek and, an eye for an eye. And in the East, it's kind of like the iron fist within the velvet glove. So this idea of being strong, but also being forgiving and caring. So we dropped the bomb. We could have destroyed everything. And she always mentioned Kyoto because we didn't destroy their sacred little city, right? And they're like, why didn't you destroy Kyoto? Why didn't you just nuke us all? Why didn't you just enslave us? You didn't. Then you reached out a hand and helped us back up. And that's what changed Japan. Okay. And it changed the whole idea of who they were as a people, as far as they explained it to me. And this is what I'm saying about the world is like, sometimes we need to burn to learn, right? This idea that we're one race, one human race on one planet. We have similar needs and goals and everything else. It's this competitive spirit, which is good, but it's also the cooperation and this idea of similarity that will take us to that next level. It's competition without love, without restraint that can destroy the world and destroys relationships and everything else. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Yep. Really interesting, Andrew, in terms of then obviously that was the straight move into a foreign workplace and market. And that, where was your then first venture into business or into any element of coaching and that you're now doing?
Well, my first was when I was a kid, actually. I was always into something. I had a friend across the street. During the summer, I lived near a place where there's a big amusement park. So we used to have in the summer our own little amusement park where you could play games and do all this stuff. We made money. But even in the elementary school, I used to buy these cards off the ice cream man. And they had these weird cards, not just baseball cards, but like monster cards, all sorts of weird things. And I bring them to school and I'd sell the cards. I'd buy the pack for 25 cents, but I could sell each card for like a dime or 25 cents. And then after doing this for a while, I don't know how long, but the principal called my parents and told me to stop because I kept taking all the kids' lunch money. And they only give you the exact amount to buy lunch with. And if you spend 25 cents or 50 cents, you don't have enough for lunch. So that was my first kind of venture. I tried a business in college with my brother. He went to the Naval Academy. The academies allow the final year students to buy cars. So this is big deal about getting them all cars. And I made deals with different car brokers and a guy in the Midwest. We were going to get them all cars, man. And we were going to do it to the Naval Academy and the Army. And, it was a big deal. Every year they give us their list. And then that business got destroyed because Detroit and other local car dealers found out what I was doing. And I don't want to get into the whole shadier side of business, but they destroyed that business and made sure that all of my partners would not do business with me because they would lose business because they've been relying on that income for all these years, obviously, all the people that live around the academies. And then after that, I had a brick and mortar business dealing environmental products to businesses and people. And unfortunately, that one got destroyed too. I unfortunately went with a company that wasn't ethical. And that's a lot of learning experiences come from doing business and having people do bad things. So I've tried a lot of businesses, like you said. 1999, I started Consulting Ace Incorporated, and that really started on when the internet was really coming out. I was doing SEO, getting people websites, ranking on the search engines, and it just grew from there. Strategic consulting, setting up businesses. I was a recruiter for a long time, so I know how to build teams and find people, and so that lasted for till now. I mean, I still have that business. We ventured out into drug testing and other businesses since then that kind of keep me going as far as my life going. Though, like everybody, my businesses got really damaged during COVID, trying to build them back. And now this venture with the book and coaching and training, more of a life and business. I still do the business coaching, but I try to combine them both because it's not just business. If you're not happy at home, your relationships with your wife, you're not healthy, your business is going to suffer. And so for me, it's really a holistic approach when I coach people now. It's pretty much everything in your life. You can't really separate anything.
Yep. I couldn't agree more, Andrew. I think this, and we have it with our team actually to make sure how open they're being, just to go, look, if you're struggling in terms of your home and your personal life, it's going to come to work. There's no magic sort of potion or something the moment you open that office door and you walk in and you go, oh, life's amazing. Like it might be a little bit of an escape sometimes, but realistically it's going to come through. And we need to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to deal with it, even if we don't know the answers. The very fact that it's being talked about is some kind of therapy, I suppose, in itself.
Absolutely. And, I think this whole idea of business as it's just business, okay, this idea that work is somehow separated from society is ridiculous. Business is about solving problems primarily. Two of the biggest problems we have in the world are the environment, obviously, taking care of our world, and the people that work there, our lives, right? Everybody that works for you is looking to feed their kids and, go on vacation and retire and, all the other pieces of life. They're giving up their most valuable hours of their life to fulfill your business needs. So why can't they live a nice life? One of the biggest problems and scams in the entire world is people being underpaid when companies are making billions of dollars in profits. This profit is supposed to be money that you earn after you've covered your expenses. If you're not paying your employees enough to live a decent life, and you're not caring for your supply chain and make sure it's not destroying the environment and people's lives, you're not doing business, right? This is the flawed idea, like greed is good. Greed is not good, right? It's literally one of the 7 deadly sins, right? And pride is up there, this idea that they can do nothing wrong. So, there's like dark side business ideas is grind everything down to the penny so you can get as much money for yourself as possible, lie, manipulate, cheat, steal, do whatever you can to win and be on top. That idea is what is destroying the world. And it's corruption, basically. So with the way, and I'm doing a video series just so everybody knows, it's going to be released really soon. It's called the Life Essentials Masterclass. It's like I said, we as human beings don't often know, what does it mean to be corrupted? What does it mean to be a good person? How do I become a good person? How do I immunize myself from being corrupted? And how do we fix and help the people that are corrupted to do the right thing? This idea that you're in business to make money. Certainly you need money to run a business. I'm not saying you don't, right? What I'm saying is, though, if you're not focused on your product and your service and your business, like as a family, as a home, as a place for people to go and feel good about what they're doing all day, and then be able to go home and support themselves and their life and everything else. That's the whole point to this society working, right? I mean, I don't know why this is like a big fight. Like companies like, God, no, I don't want to pay you more than $5 an hour. We made $100 million last year, but we're not going to pay you a dime more. I'm like, why? You should be sharing this. Everybody that's in that company should be making over $100,000 a year if you're making that much in profit. I don't care if you're washing the floors. There's no lesser work in a company. And that's one thing I know I'm going off a little bit, but that's one thing when I go and I consult with people in their businesses, often I hear business owners talk about different levels of employees. And I'm like, you got to stop thinking about it like that, because if you want your business to run, all of these people are needed. And you're thinking about the people that are delivering your stuff and installing it as the lowest level. And I'm saying to you, no, without them, you have nothing, right? Like literally everything's sitting in the warehouse. So this is a needed function of your business. They are not lowly. They are absolutely needed. And you should be paying them just like you would any executive and high level person in your company. And I think that's one of the things we need to wake up to as a society, because if everybody had more money, right? Everybody's like, oh, we need to make the economy work. We need to make the economy work. Do you realize that most poor people work, like I'm talking billions of people, work full time, if not more than full time, all these poor people, but they don't have enough money to participate in society. And the business is always like, oh, we need more customers. If everybody in these companies just paid their employees a really nice wage, you would have billions of more customers tomorrow, and you wouldn't even need to do anything. It's like McDonald's, Walmart, Amazon, all the rest of these guys. If they just paid everybody well, it'd be like a boom. The economy would be flooded with money, and they'd have more. They wouldn't be able to keep the shoes and the blenders and everything else in stock. There would be so many customers. I don't know. Does that make sense? It's like economy 101, and it's like the world doesn't even understand the economy, 101.
No, it makes complete sense. I think you're getting the more and more I think that time goes on, more and more of the wealth is distributed less between people. It's being contained within a fewer number of people. And
that happens throughout all of history. I've studied enough human history to see that that's a typical power and money seems to gravitate like it's a sun or something. You know, the more that you have, the more it pulls in, the more it pulls in. And that's where if these people that are in that center are corrupted, they just keep pulling more in like a black hole, right? But if they're like a sun and they can shine this out everywhere and spread it, then, you know, I use an analogy. It's like the wealth is like the blood of our society, right? It needs to flow into all the different organizations and households to a certain level. Otherwise, it's going to die and not be healthy, right? And I'm talking water systems, I'm talking households, I'm talking you name it. And there can also be too much, right? Gluttony and everything else. So, you know, most people don't care about being like they say that the 7 deadly sins, you know, gluttony and power and all of this wealth. There's no end to it. You know what I mean? Like if you have that sickness, there's no end to more money. There's no end to power and all the rest of it. And it becomes a sickness, and you get deluded, and you're around, you know, a whole bunch of people that are supporting this whole negative system. And like, how do you break that? How do you change it without some type of horrible revolution where masses of people, you know, millions die? You know, and that's I think the greatest challenge for humanity is that how do we become better people without so much, I don't know what the word is, like negativity and horror? You know, how do you, it's like helping somebody up instead of yelling at them to get up. You know what I mean? It's like it's in our society, I think a lot of times one of the biggest problems that we have is that so many good people are led down such a negative path, and they think they're doing good. I mean, if you look at history, I've never read any story of any people that do the great horrors that think they're evil, right? They all think they're the best, doing good. Hitler thought he was the best guy in the world, helping to save the world. You know what I'm saying? The Crusades, that literally says, do not kill, do not steal. And yet somehow all of Europe decided to go down and kill and steal everybody's stuff in Christ's homeland. I mean, how do you even get there? You know, like literally it says, do not do this as your preemptive law, and yet you somehow rationalize it and it's okay. Look what they did to the indigenous people of the United States of America before we were here. You know, we came over and pretty much killed everybody. So this idea of being good and right, can lead to horror, literal horror. And so it doesn't matter what you think. It literally, like, we all have to know what this really, really means. And that's why, again, I'm going around, but I wrote the way, but the Life Essentials Masterclass, it like covers things like, you know, what it means to be a good person, the rules to life, the meaning of life, the true goal of life, how to achieve the true goal of life, these big ideas, so we can kind of, you know, the human race, I always say, we need to get on the same page regarding these foundations so that we can turn the page and move on, right? And get to a higher level. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have as a, you know, human society and as individuals, as we just don't know how to do it. And that's what I'm hoping to share with the world. And again, it's not about me, it's really about the solutions that I found. Hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, and just a good place, like with the book, obviously you call it the way, but there's I think there's some key fundamental elements I think that people maybe are looking for in life that you cover within the book. So things through like I think positive relationships, creating sort of optimal health, finding your own true success, finding maybe lasting happiness as well.
Yeah.
A lot of I think a lot of stuff that actually there isn't one answer to. You know, that I'm sure my happiness is very different to your happiness, and my success is different to your success. And for me,
well, let me just speak to that though. But there are fun foundations that will share in that happiness. We're human, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm pointing out. I'm not telling you what happiness is. I'm showing you how to create happiness in your life. And again, like you said, you might find more happiness doing one thing than I would, right? But you need to be able to find that, right? You need to have time to do that and realize how important it is. Or just take the basics of life, like sleep. Most people I talk to aren't rested, right? They don't even know like what it means to have a good sleep pattern, and how do you optimize your sleep? You know, like we should all be taught that. I mean, seriously, like you mentioned, communication. How much time do we spend in school teaching little kids how to communicate with each other and how to have relationships and build up friendships and any of that stuff? Zero, really. I mean, it's just scolding them until they behave the way we want them to. We don't really teach them how to raise kids. I mean, I think out of out of high school, I've asked so many kids, how much time did you spend learning like the different stages of child development, what they need at those different stages, just so you have an idea of how to raise your kids? I have found like 4 people that had any classes like that at all, So I guess what I'm saying is I hear you. When I say the human way, it's like there are foundations in life that we all share that if we optimize with our best practices, and again, best practices doesn't mean there's just one best practice. There may be 10, and this one works better for you, and this one works better for me. But then we can refine it, and then there becomes an 11th, and that one overshadows the 2 that we were doing, and then we learn that one, and it even improves our life even better. And this idea of best practices and implementing solutions applies to business, applies to any organization and your life. So when I'm talking about building happiness, there are things in your life that you can do to build happiness. But if you don't know what they are and you're not doing them, then it might not be as happy as you might be, So that's what I guess I'm doing. I'm trying to share the foundations of a lot of these different areas, right? So we can all kind of stand on a foundation. I'm not building the whole building for you, right? I'm just saying, look, as a human being, you need to eat and sleep and talk and do all this stuff. And here's the basic answers to these questions that we can continually improve upon, that we can then walk together and, build an even better, greater house together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does indeed, Andrew.
Okay.
I'm interested, though, Andrew, to go before you had like the realization moment that you understood the way, right? How was your life different between like from before understanding to since understanding?
Sure. Well, there's so many pieces to the way, and it was discovered over my whole life. Just the one mental aspect training. Just so people know, the first book contains all 7 steps. Step 5 of the way is about building your day. I call it the daily way, and it's implementing all these best practices and virtues and things into your life. So over 30 years, I collected all of these solutions in all these different areas, but I wasn't able to put it all together in a way that made sense to everybody, other than you just reading a huge encyclopedia of knowledge that was not really consumable. I kept showing them, they're like, no, man, that's way too much. And then in 2015, I was literally sorting out the beginning and the ending of this major work, right? And I kept seeing my notes. This is key to true success. This is key to true success. I kept saying that over and over. I put these keys together, mixed them up, put them in the right order, and it was like a secret code got unlocked. And I discovered these 7 steps to the way. And what that allowed me to do was frame this in a simple way where I could literally walk people down these steps on how to be the best person you can be, how society worked, and all these things. So, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes just the context, the frame around things matters a lot on how you are able to share it and make it understandable.
Hey there. Really sorry for interrupting, but I really wanted to let you know about some amazing bonus content we have available for you. You see, not only do we record behind the scenes, but also we go deeper into some of the key topics that come up during the conversation. Now, you can find out more about this and access all of it free of charge over on Facebook. Just search for the Leaky Bucket Podcast Community.
And my dad always told me when I was young, there's enough geniuses in the world that make a lot of money. What we don't have is enough geniuses in the world solving the biggest problems, right? Like everybody seems to go into finance or whatever. So, if you're going to do anything in your life, that would be the place to focus. And I think as a kid, that always stuck with me. And everywhere I looked, I was like, yeah, why is that happening? Why is that happening? Why aren't they fixing that? Why are there still lead pipes in America, for God's sake? You know what I mean? It's like, it makes no sense why some of these things are happening. And you ask everybody, and everybody's like, yeah, no, that makes no sense. No, it makes happen. Well, we've known lead pipes are bad for what, 50, 100 years, and we still are using them? Like, why wasn't it a thing to go find them all and make a plan to dig them all up and replace them? Like when we discovered this. No, because then it's corruption and somebody, I got to hide it. We want to make money still and all of these things. And that's where I think human race, like if we're ever going to rise up and take our rightful place, we need to kind of evolve. When I talk to my friends about all this, they're like, it seems like what you're saying is humanity just needs to kind of wake up to these facts together so that we can kind of go down this path together. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what this is. It's not me telling you anything. It's like 2 + 2 = 4. If I show you psychologically how this idea and this idea will help you create a better mind, or this idea and this idea will help you create a better body, this and this will help you communicate better. That's what I'm saying. So it's like 2 + 2 = 4. This is the 2 + 2 on how you can be a better person and how we can understand society. Without this basic understanding, it's like we can't do high math if we do not agree on 2 + 2 = 4, right? So we're trying to solve all these great problems in the world where most of the people are like, no, that's not, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what a good person means. I don't even know what the rules to life are or anything, So like, how could we ever agree? And that's I think the beauty of this age is that we are so connected. We could literally change the world like tomorrow, right? In 2 years, the entire world could be on the same page regarding certain ideas, right? I mean, that has never been possible in all of human history. So this is the only time that we could actually make these changes happen. We've all been burned, right? The pandemic, the environment, autocrats, horrible governments and businesses doing all these stupid things. What I mean? It's just, we're all just like, oh my God. Everybody talks is just so tired of it. And it's all these leaders are like thinking, oh yeah, we're doing all the greatest things. You guys are not. Everybody keeps pointing their fingers and we're going down this hatred road over and over and over and over again. And it's just got to stop. But we need to know how to stop it. And I guess that's why I'm trying to share these ideas so that we can get on the same page and just move on, man. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of all this fighting and bickering and everything else. It's like, just let's talk about solutions and how we can implement them and, put all the pieces into the pot and figure it out. It's not that hard.
Yep. I think, Andrew, if you like, your way, right? I know you refer to it as the way, but your way, right, of doing things, which I agree with. I think there's numerous opportunities that can be presented to ourselves to fall off the path of living our lives in that way. How do you make sure for yourself that you're not distracted by those different paths? And if it's the case that you do get distracted by them, how do you make sure then that you're getting yourself back onto the right way?
That's absolutely a great question. Once you understand what the way is, and I'm not sure how much time we have, but the idea of living rational, positive action, integrating virtues and best practices into your life, and the idea of the daily way, refining your actual day from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and what you're doing during the day, how you're thinking, what you're acting, what you're actually thinking and things, is what makes you a better person. So it takes about 90 days to develop a habit. So if you're integrating virtues and best practices in all these fundamental areas as quickly as possible in every 90-day cycle, you are going to become a better and better person. And once you have your daily way mapped out, if you ever get off your true path, all you need to do is go back and follow your daily way. And I talk about this in the book, like the idea of following your daily way. Sometimes you're just like, I don't want to do that. And I've done that. You get off your daily way, you break the cycle, you do whatever, and you just don't feel right after you've done it for a while. Once you understand what your mission is in life, and you map out what you want to be doing to fulfill your mission and all of that, when you're not doing that, it doesn't feel right? And once you know that, wow, waking up and doing these exercises and drinking water and eating this way and doing this and doing that is making me feel better and making me into a better person, you naturally want to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, I think a lot of people in the world, we have some divergence in our mind, but that's where I think like the meditation, I wish in the West, honestly, that Freud and Jung and all those guys met some Eastern Zen master. That would have changed all of Western society, because I've done both. I've studied, I have a degree, one of my degrees is in philosophy and theology and things. And one of the concentrations was in Eastern philosophy. And I did a lot of Zen meditations and things when I was a kid. And there was a point where your mind just runs like a TV set, never stops changing channels. You have no control. What meditation, certain types of meditation, Zen meditation teaches you to do is let that stop. And it's not forcing stop, it's surrendering stop, peace stop. And you get a higher level of understanding and able to see things better. And in Western mental, it's always the ego, the super ego, it's like you're 15 people in your mind, right? All fighting for control. And they don't really teach you how to become one mind and peaceful and all of that. So I know I just went off on a little tangent there, but the idea, I think, is that we as a people have solutions that can be found from all of our people all over the world. And if we integrate them together, it creates a larger truth. And one of the things I found about the way is you take a lot of golden threads, thousands and thousands of golden threads, they reveal a bigger truth. So the way is putting some truths that great thinkers have found throughout history together, putting it in a way that hasn't been presented before, but also it's the amount of them that creates an overwhelming amounts of evidence on how you can be the best person you can be. So, and I just say this, like everybody that's ever read the book and talked to me about it, I've even had like one Harvard grad guy read it and tell, oh no, before he read it, he told me, oh, there's no way, everybody's different, blah, 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 all this stuff. There's no way, it's already been done before. And then he comes back 3 months later after he read the book and he's like, you know what, you're right. This is the way for humanity to become better. So the idea, I think, is this collective understanding. Once we understand it, it's like 2 + 2 = 4. It can't really be denied. I haven't had anybody say, once they understand it, like why this is not true, or, what I mean? It just is, it's truth, universal truth. And it's not my truth. Again, it's human truth. All I did was find these human truths and kind of put them together. And I don't want to make this about me. This really isn't not about me. Anyway, hope that makes sense.
Andrew, if I was going to make a shift and start living a more purposeful life, then in that way, what would be the first step I'd need to be doing today?
Well, you need the knowledge. I think that's the biggest thing. We're all born ignorant. We all have pieces, right? You know a lot of stuff, but it's always what you don't know that can hurt you the most. And we're only as strong as our weakest link. And so if you don't know that thing and it can break you, then that's where I always start. I always do like a triage with people when I do coaching. I want to take you through so you understand all of this, right? But I also have to know where the pain points in your life are right now. So, and I don't know that with you, but you do. So if it's your relationships, if it's your health, if it's whatever it may be, your finances, I would say you do two things at the same time. You're going to start with, and again, I don't know which area, but the way is broken up into 7 steps. You don't necessarily have to take them all in order. So we can do a little triage, jump into the communication chapter 10. So you can I need to learn how to deal with these people in my life in a more, better way. Go start there. And then we'll go back and start at the beginning. I would say one of the best ways to do this, and I've found, is that sadly, people don't read books today as much, you know what I mean? Or if they do, it takes them forever because they have so many things going on. So what I'm doing is a Life Essentials Masterclass. It covers some of the major ideas, like the goal of life, the rules to life, how to achieve the true goal of life, basically an outline, and with some deep knowledge, and golden threads in there in this video series. I think that's one of the best ways to kind of get acquainted with this and to get some pieces together so that you can then take that next step. I'm just starting out on this, so I don't have all the videos done. I don't have all the books out. This is just the first book. There's a 3-book series. So I would say, join with me in the groups and on my social media, get the book, take the videos, and really just start down the path. Once you create your daily way and you're kind of on this path of building more positive into your life and into the world, it's like, and when you do that with other people, it kind of builds on its own. It has a momentum to it. If you start feeling better and your relationships are better, it makes you happier. So, I would say start somewhere.
Brilliant. Andrew, it's a good segue into, obviously you mentioned about, websites, social media. Obviously we can put all the links in the show notes and everything, but where can people find out more?
Sure. The hub for everything is the website 7wayme. That's the number 7, WAY.me. And I named it that because it's really short. Hopefully it's easy to remember. The way has 7 steps. The organization behind everything that I'm creating is called the 7 Foundation. So it's like, you can say 7wayme, and it'll take you to this website. You can learn about the way. You can join the One, which is the One Party, the One Movement, the One Tribe, where we learn all this stuff. We make changes in the world. There's a lot more coming down the road. Like I said, I got a video series, the Life Essentials Masterclass, lots of other videos planned. It's very time consuming because doing all this stuff, being a consultant and reading and writing and stuff sitting in your office is one thing. Going on shows, and shooting videos and producing them and everything else is a whole nother game. It's a lot of work. So, just what I would say is just bear with me. I'm new to this game, and I will get better. We'll go faster. We're going to, God willing, change the world for the positive for everybody.
Yeah. Andrew, you've got an abundance, I think, of skills and areas of expertise that you've learned over the years. Sort of looking through your profile before this, everything from I think it was martial arts through to weapons through to gardening. There's an absolute wide range. Have you always had that thirst for knowledge in so many different areas?
I have. My dad always called me. He said, "You're like the jack of all trades. Just be wary, because the jack of all trades is often the master of none." He used to say it to me all the time. And I'd be like, "Well, why can't you be the master of more than one thing?" It's like I used to fight with him on that. And I think for me, the martial arts, working out, training was a big deal when I was a kid. I was always an athlete. I always had a lot of energy. I was one of those kids. My dad would be like, "We need to talk." All right, go run around the block, come back, and then we'll talk, because I was way too fidgety and everything else. So I think the working out, it all has a place in our lives. We got to care for our body. This is the only vehicle we have. Gardening, gosh, being in touch with nature. My first degree that I went to attain was to be a forest ranger. I didn't realize it was so much science. Just so you know, those guys are full-on scientists. They have to take I don't know. It was just way too much for me. I think the diversity of life sometimes is what keeps us sane too. So for me, working out or working in the garden, working on my car, doing all these things, keeping busy is what makes an interesting life for me. I don't know. Does that make sense? I think that we all can find hobbies and things that we enjoy. I think the problem is our society right now is we have social media and these other video game things that distort our lives a little bit. You know what I mean? Sitting in front of a screen and barely moving for a kid all day is horrible. They should be running around and doing things, climbing on walls, and that's how you learn, and I don't know, learn how to deal with your body and your life and everything else. So yeah, I think it's an important thing that we diversify in what we do. Gardening, working out. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems humanity has is that we're disconnected from nature. Some cities, you don't even see a tree. You know what I mean? It's just if you're not in green in this flowing, non-square world, I think that's part of the problem with our mind. I think a lot of people in the city get slightly crazy. They live in these small little places. They're not around nature, and it's just artificial reality, and you get detached from what real life really is. I think that's where everybody wanted to move to the country. And when COVID hit, it was like exodus out of the cities. It was like, yeah, I want some more space. I want a yard. We all want to live a nice life. This idea that you got to make as much money as possible from every square inch and stack people in as close as possible together really comes out of the back in the days where we were literally coming out of the forest and we're trying to cut down the trees so we can build a house. It took so much effort. We stacked them together really closely, and we were all kind of afraid of the nature around us. And we've never really stopped that. I mean, we have, don't get me wrong. There are cities, Singapore is a beautiful example of a city that did a good job of integrating nature within every aspect of the city. And I think that's where we all want to go. You see greenways happening all the time and that kind of thing. So I think being more attached to nature, what do I want to say? Life has got to be more than just working and coming home and doing all the chores and going back to work again. We have to create better lifestyles for everybody. And that's what I mean about creating a better society. Work is about getting the work done so we can all have, food and pianos and blenders or whatever, you know what I mean? But the point of that isn't doing that. It's like going to the gym. The point of going to the gym, if you go to the gym, isn't to be in the gym, right? It's to make yourself healthier. So the idea of all of our work and everything we're doing in our society isn't to do that. It's to make life, right, more enjoyable, more fulfilling, easier, and solving all the basic problems of the world, right? So for me, it's I don't know. It's like when I talk to people individually, we all want the same things. I have never talked to a human being that were like, no, I want my children to suffer. Or I want them to have horrible lives. You know what I mean? It's like, no, of course you don't. You know what I mean? It's like, you want pollution? You want your kids breathing in pollution? No. You know what I mean? You want bad food, poison water? No. You know what I mean? Nobody does. So it's like, why does anybody have it? And why after thousands of years are we still fighting over these basics? And I think that's where I say we have to evolve. See, humans were born ignorant and we're brought up in a society. And if we keep bringing up everybody the same way we have in the past, we're perpetuating the past, right? We need to integrate some new ideas on how we do things if we're going to create a better society. And what I am saying is that or what I've found, I guess, is that psychologically, spiritually, mentally, everything else, there are ways you can help children to integrate best practices on everything they do from when they're kids that will make them better people when they grow up. That means they don't have to relearn how to drink water, I'm 30 years old. I just learned how to communicate better with a woman that I wanted to marry. I've been through 4 divorces and I finally learned. It's like, why not have taught those children these basics to communication? They wouldn't have been divorced 4 times because he didn't know how to, you know what I'm saying? So this is where I think it's like the shared knowledge of humanity is our greatest gift. It's like we pass on things to our progenitors, our children. It's the society that they're around, the physical stuff, the buildings and everything, but it's also the knowledge and how we bring them up. And if we can perfect that process, that's how generation by generation we create a better and better and better society. If we keep letting kids be raised in hatred and not taking care of themselves, they don't have enough nutrition, mental stimulus, and all the rest, we're going to create a crazy world, and that's what we keep doing. Hopefully, does that make sense? Hopefully, I'm making some sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I think, Andrew, I think it's easy enough just to go, look, one person changing things probably doesn't make big enough impact in the world. However, that one person, if you're the one person who's doing it, there might then be another person and another person and another person. And before we know it, we have got the change of a generation and we have got evolution and we have got moving forward.
And just, that's how everything's ever started though, right?
Yeah.
And every country is one guy, then another guy. America, right? The guy sitting in a bar with 3 other guys going, this sucks, right? Boom. So I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think it's easy enough to be in my position and go, oh, yeah, sounds like a lot of effort though, Andrew. Like,
it's insane. Yeah. Well, let me say it like this, okay? I have this discussion with my friends. One of my friends is a little more hardcore on this than others, but it's like, do you believe that we're doomed? Like most people I talk to see the human race as doomed. Like we're never going to get our act together. We're going down the tubes. And I'm like, this is a good sign. If most of the people see that, that means you're awake. You can't fix something that's broken unless you know it's broken, right? And the thing with the world is, I get that we are doomed. And I always says, I agree with you if we don't have a solution and implement it, right? It's like, I have a leak in my roof. Okay, you're going to fix it? Oh, I'm just going to sit here and we're all going to be like, wow, there's a leak in the roof. How sad. Then, like you said, then one guy gets up and fixes it and he's like, wow, you just fixed the leak in the roof. Well, maybe I can fix the leak in my roof and you can fix your leak and then we can get together and then we can fix everybody's leaks, right? So I guess what I'm saying is it is hard. It's like I don't know, man, I'm giving up everything to do this. Should I be doing it? Everybody keeps telling me this is the most important work to do. Your solutions are absolutely true. If people just followed them, it would change the world. So I'm like, how could I give up on that? So I guess what I'm saying to you is it's really hard until it's done, right? It's really impossible until somebody achieves it. So you can look at anything in the past that's ever been monumental. There have been people being like, there's no way. That's impossible. There's no way it's going to happen. It's too big, and then they do it and they're like, wow, okay. So what I'm saying is like, if we as the human race all want the same things and we actually have the best practices and we know how to do it, what is literally stopping us from doing it? We have the money, we have the power, we have the knowledge, we have people, we have everything we can possibly imagine. You could say anything. We're like, you want to build a pipeline from, we've already done that from Antarctica all the way, it's like, what is it we can't do? No, we could pretty much do everything if we just get on the same page and start working. And we don't need everybody. Just imagine an organization, I call it the one movement. You know, I have the one party, the one movement, the one tribe. The one movement is about, okay, just look at how many organizations there are fighting for equal rights around the world, fighting for environmental justice and all these rest of these things. There are literally thousands, right? And there's are a lot of good people trying to do good things, but the efforts are so diluted, it's not getting anything done. How many hundreds of billions of dollars has been given to Greenpeace and, you know, all these other environmental groups for the last 20, 30 years? What have they saved? Right? It was like the Amazon's being destroyed, the Congo's being destroyed, the world is burning, whatever, you know, floods and all this stuff. So I'm saying, if we're going to make changes, we need to get on the same page. We also need to group together. Now imagine 1 billion people, and again, all these other groups can still exist, but they also join in one massive group, and then we focus on something. Imagine all those people giving $1 a month. That's $1 billion a month, and 1 billion people. Some of them can show up somewhere. People can click on petitions. That amount of power could change pretty much anything in the world. And again, I'm talking about a systemic change in most of the ways that we do everything. So, and again, it's like I say, it's always starting at the core. If we can deal with the core, the 2 + 2 at the center, and all agree on that, then when we come out to fix these bigger solutions, they become obvious. It becomes consensus because we all understand the math of how to create a better society. Like, there shouldn't be an argument about creating clean water systems, right? There's, you know, it's like, does anybody not need clean water for their children, for yourself? You know, I mean, it's, so where's the global world, you know, water system project plan thing? You know, that's going to make everybody desalination projects, you know, solar stills that are collecting water out of the air, whatever, all these things, these systems to give everybody clean water around the world. Why isn't that a thing that some of these super rich organizations, think tanks are working on? That's what I don't get. It's like we are all want the same things, but nobody's working on the solutions. Like they, and again, I'm generalizing. I know they are circular economy. There's a lot of good companies, a lot of good people doing a lot of good things. I think if we just join together, get on the same page, we could really make these changes happen faster. And it doesn't need to be this horror show that we're having now. I don't know if that makes sense, man. Hopefully I'm bringing a little hope.
You are. Yeah, I think it's been insightful. You know, you're bringing a very different angle to the majority of people. I think it's one about possibly not for your own legacy, but for the legacy of the human race. That actually we should be really evolving. We're cleverer. We have more resources. We have more information than we've ever had, and yet almost that message is like we're wasting it, and we're not using it to the right advantages to move forward at the right way, with the right speed and the right direction. Yeah,
I think a lot of times it has to do with our leaders, right? If our leaders and the people that are in charge of businesses and governments and everything else don't really understand the basics and what they're trying to do, that's where we get this craziness. You know, the idea that one man gets to decide the fate of everyone under them is tribal. You know what I mean? It goes back to barbarian level, you know, savage level times where do what I say or I'll kill you, you know, type of mentality. And I think that our society's evolved to the point where we need to have checks and balances on everybody, because anybody can become corrupted, and nobody I've studied enough history to know that the more power and money that you give people, especially men, the more likely they are to be more corrupted. I mean, the kings in the past in Europe were more interested in stuffing their houses with gold than they were taking care of their people. You know what I'm saying? And they would literally take from their people to stuff their houses with even more gold if they could. So, and that's that idea, that corruption is, I think, at the core of what we're trying to do. You know, I don't know if you're religious at all, but it goes back to this idea of original sin, right? The idea that we have this flaw in us. I always say that this is a gift, because we're not puppets. We were not programmed to be something. We can be corrupted and fail and be all this horrible negative thing, or we can be good and become a really positive thing. So, you know, it's like, how do we fix this to where most people become the good and the positive and all the rest? And like I said, this whole idea of Christianity, where, you just sit around and you just are forgiven and you go to heaven. You don't have to do any good works, I think is a mockery of what Christ's life was about. Christ was about trying to fix problems. He was, complaining about, you name it. You know what I mean? Poor, rich and poor, grifting at the church, whatever it may be. He was trying to say love, we need to brotherly love, be better people and all of this kind of things. What did the church do? Did they go down that path and create an organization that was trying to figure out the problems of the world and fixing them? If Christ were alive and made the church, you can't tell me, I've talked to Christians about this, he would have had an organization that took somebody off the street that was poor and desperate and had nothing and created a system to make him into, and give him a life somewhere, where he could have education and good food and all this stuff and take care of himself, learning how to fish for himself. But that's not what we created. Like I said, when I look at the world, it's it just needs a chiropractic adjustment. We have all the answers. We just haven't put them all together in the right way. And I think that if we had a chance, when I pray and kind of commune with God, it's I guess I look at all of human history and I'm it just really isn't fair. And I guess I know life isn't fair, but how can you expect people to become the best people they can be if they don't know how? How can our systems, a parent who loves their kid, who is totally ignorant, raise a child correctly? It's not possible. So if we don't give people knowledge and the ability and the facility to be their best and literally have the food, the nutrition they need, if you don't give a kid the right nutrition, their brain is not going to be developed properly. Their bodies aren't. So they can't become their best later in life if they don't have that good start. So, for me, I don't know. While it's so hard and it's so difficult, it's so massive, it's not really that hard. Like I said, I can start an organization right now, which I have on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, and get 1 billion people to sign up tomorrow, right? If I were super famous, I was on Oprah or whatever, I got spread around the world. And of those 1 billion people, we could change the world in weeks. You know what I mean? So while it's hard, it's not even close to being that hard that it would be 100 years ago, And honestly, it's easy. I could get $1 billion by people giving me $1 just to my Venmo account. You know what I mean? In a day. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's hard. It's monumental. It's all big, but it's also simple. The way is making the complex simple. It does a lot of, psychological, structural, coping skills, and all these big monumental things, but I don't talk about it like that. I just show you how to implement these structures into your life that will build all of these things that we all want. So, I guess what I'm saying is the only reason I'm doing this, man, honestly, I'm with you. I was in 2015, I was lost because this is too big. There's no way I'm going to be able to explain all this. And then I figured this out and I started sharing it, and everybody's like, yeah, this is awesome. This is the solution. So I guess the answer is, it's always hard until it's done, but it's like math. Until somebody solves that problem, it's always nobody can solve that equation, right? But once you do, then it becomes just a part of everyday society, computing and whatever else, right? It's no big deal. And you don't go, wow, that one code that guy wrote is all about him. Nobody cares, So I guess that's what the point of this is it's once something isn't known, is known, it becomes common knowledge, and it's this basic to what it is to be human, you almost can't unknow it. And then once we teach it to our kids and we start raising people, and we all kind of bond together and do all this stuff, man, this could be a wonderful, happy world. You know what I mean? Everybody could have opportunity to become the best person they can be. We could be fixing all the horrible places in the world and making better lives for everybody. People say, oh, where's all this money going to come from? Do you realize how much money the world spends every year? How many trillions and trillions of dollars that are spent every year on perpetuating this horror? Why not just use that same amount of money that we're spending right now and just focus it on some good stuff? And, sure, it might cost more money to do some things than others, but who cares? If, I made $100 billion last year, and then this year I only made 90 billion. Oh, how sad. But then you just provided for all these people's great lives. You built parks and funded, educational programs and did all this wonderful stuff for the world. Oh, what a shame you didn't make an extra 10 billion. I think this whole perspective of what we're trying to do here as a business, as people, has just got to shift a little bit. It's about creating a better world for everybody. I mean, it's really that simple. It's about you becoming the best person you can be, and that requires you to understand certain aspects of all these different areas of your life. And just like, it's not even that hard. I mean, you've done math. I mean, once you understand math, 2 + 2 = 4, 5 + 5 = 10. It's like, yeah, when you're a kid, you're like, whoa. But now it's like, right? Same thing with like drinking water or going to sleep, all these best practices. It can become second nature. And that's the whole idea of the way. It's not for you to constantly read my book and go through the stuff and do all this. No, it's get the knowledge, integrate it into your life. Have a nice day. Let's bond together and make a better world.
Brilliant. I think it's a great place in which to draw us to a close, Andrew. I think the mission that you're on in order to try and make the world a better place is a very admirable mission that I don't think many people are probably prepared to take on. So yeah, hats off to you in that. We have a bit of a closing.
I got enough people to join me a little bit, though. That's all.
Yeah.
And again, if you want to join me, just click a petition, just $1 here and there. I mean, that's, some people do major work, other people do a little work, but all together we do major work. All right. So that's the idea.
Yeah, Andrew, before you go, we've got one closing tradition on the podcast, and I really have no idea where you may go with this, given your range of experience and also the thirst and hunger you have for the journey that you're on. But that is that if you needed to start a new business tomorrow in something completely unrelated to what you're currently doing, what would it be and why?
Gosh, it's funny. I have so many businesses planned. I actually have another startup that I stopped doing when I was doing this, and it's a new kind of social media platform search thing. I can't really describe it here because it's in startup mode, but I think if I were to do anything, it's funny, my friends ask me this all the time. Like, my friend asked me this the other day, like, when are you going to retire, man? When are you going to stop doing this and go back to your other stuff? I don't know, man. I think sometimes when you're on the mission of your life, it's so encompassing that you really can't do anything else until it's done. And my mission is not only just to spread this word about the way and all of this. There are systems I need to create to help perpetuate this in the future. So I don't know. I think I'm old enough now to have gone through the 20 different businesses, and now I'm kind of set. So I don't know that I would change my business. I would just add on to it. And that's what I think one of the things I would suggest to any entrepreneur out there is look at your business career as maybe you keep a piece of something you sell, or you stay interested in it and you keep adding on. That seemed to help me. That's where I got drug testing ace. I got consulting ace. I tried a lot of other businesses with people. Most of them didn't work out. But it's still a good learning experience for sure. I know we're going to talk about money and all sorts of business stuff. We didn't do that today, but maybe another day.
Yeah, maybe so. Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and it's been really insightful about your life and your journey and a journey to a better world. Thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, and thank you everybody for listening. It really means a lot, that this does resonate with people. I love hearing from people, and if there's anything I can do to help anybody, let me know.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Leaky Bucket Podcast. I'd love it if you could help spread the message by clicking subscribe and leaving a review. Also, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can also find more info and links in the show notes below. See you next time. Coming next week on the Leaky Bucket Podcast.
The biggest thing you'll see is 2020, there was 48 mandatory changes just made with the good work plan that got brought into place. So if you've not updated since the 6th of April 2020, you're massively outdated. So stuff like this, you need an external eye on it, because you know what it's like. You're constantly looking over the same things. You don't spot certain mistakes.